Alright, we're now in part 3 and the final part of my review of the double feature 2007 movie Grindhouse. And today we are going to go into the second movie of Grindhouse, Quentin Tarantino's Death Proof. Before I get into the whole film, I just want to point something out about the official Grindhouse DVD that has the original theatrical version. Look at this DVD. It's meant to look like a record. I just think that's cool. I just wanted to show that off for a moment. I'm not exactly sure what to say. I mean, I always get very either nervous or emotional, or just I feel a little on edge when I talk about Quentin Tarantino, because it's no secret to anyone who watches me, who has seen my previous review of Tarantino's films, I'm a Quentin Tarantino fanboy. I love all of his movies, and got out my big Kahuna t-shirt once again. And chances are, this review is probably going to end up being another 2 or 3 hour video of me just sucking Quentin Tarantino's dick. I'm kidding, I'm going to try to keep this one a little bit shorter due to it being the Grindhouse movie, and I make no promises, and I had a little to drink before I started doing this review, so excuse me if I'm a little tipsy. Death Proof is the second movie of the original Grindhouse release, and to many people they consider it the lesser of the two, and maybe it's just because I love his film so much, but Death Proof is definitely my personal favorite. I mean, I love Planet Terror and I love Robert Rodriguez, but I love Quentin Tarantino to death. Now, my personal opinion on Death Proof is, I don't think it's a bad film. I love it a lot. I really enjoy it. And once again, I'm reviewing the less than 90-minute version that was part of the original Grindhouse release, so I'm not going to get into any specific moments that are in the extended version. But as I was saying, I think it's a very enjoyable film, but I do agree with the opinion that many people have that Planet Terror did do a better job of looking and feeling like a Grindhouse movie. Like, Robert Rodriguez made sure that pretty much every single individual frame looked like a poorly made film from the 70s. And Quentin Tarantino has worked in exploitation before and done a pretty good job at it, such as the Kill Bills and when he wrote From Dusk Till Dawn. I guess the biggest problem Death Proof has is it's too well made. I mean, Quentin Tarantino did a great job at recreating action cheese from the 70s, action Hong Kong cheese from the 70s with the Kill Bill movies. But at the same time, Kill Bill worked in a lot of ways that it really shouldn't have, because Tarantino did such an amazing job directing and writing it. He was able to take something extremely ridiculous and make it great and sound 100 times better than it would in the hands of another director. And part of that can be said for Death Proof. And it does at times, especially in the beginning, feel kind of choppy and schlocky, like a 70s Grindhouse film, such as the editing's a little off, we get the scratched film look. However, I think about 20 or 30 minutes in, the quality, like the picture quality of Death Proof, gets an upgrade and feels more like a legit movie at times. And the editing isn't as cutting corners as it was before. And so it begins to feel less like a badly made Grindhouse film. It begins to feel like a Tarantino film. And for a lot of people, that's where they take fault at least from what I've seen. And I get it, but I still love it, and it is my personal favorite of the two. I think it's a very well done movie. It's kind of a combination of action, thriller, and a little bit of horror. Mostly it stays in the thriller and action genre. And I guess another thing that people really took issue with was, like every Tarantino film, we get a ton of very long scenes of people talking, and the dialogue scenes here, like in every other film that he makes, are very flowing, they're well paced, and we're hooked on every single word every character says, even the minor characters. And it is very good, but at the same time, that wasn't really what Grindhouse movies are about, from what I've seen. And for those who were expecting a total recreation of it, I guess that's where they felt a little let down-ish, like it wasn't what they were expecting. And I'm not going to go on too long and repeat myself, but I'll just say it does not bother me at all. I'm engaged all the way through, and Tarantino excels at building suspense. Just, I think he excels a little too well at it, to the point where the cheapness just is kind of left on the sideline. The parts where it feels the absolute most like a cheap exploitation film would definitely be, as I said, in the first 20 to 30 minutes, where the editing is a little fucked up deliberately, and we get this fun moment where this particular shot is repeated over and over and over again in a bar, and it's a fun moment, and the scratch look is always welcome.
Oh, so you must be the infamous butterfly.
The other part is the last half hour of the film, where we get a pretty amazing car chase scene that just abandons all logic and reality, and truly feels like a 70s chase movie. And like in Planet Terror, there's a part of the film where, around the middle mark, we think that we're gonna get something pretty interesting, and then all of a sudden we cut to a title card that says "Missing Reel," and then we cut to the next part, which is apparently sometime later, and the part where this happens, that was a fun part. Like Planet Terror and Death Proof, the missing reel thing they did, that was a funny addition. And for anyone wondering what the segment that was cut out was that is in the extended version, the main character is about to get a lap dance, and we're all thinking, this should be interesting, and then all of a sudden, missing reel, and then we cut to later after the lap dance is over, and Tarantino was the one who came up with this idea, and he said to Rodriguez that it would be fun to make audiences wonder, what did we miss? I'm not going to dwell too long. I love Death Proof a lot. I'm probably in the minority. I mean, hell, Quentin Tarantino has said that he considers it his worst movie, but I don't think he said he was ashamed of it. I think he just said, he put it as his worst, like of the movies that would be his least favorite of the ones he's directed personally. He admitted at one point that he thinks he over-tweaked Death Proof, but it's still something that at the time he felt very proud of. Just liked it, and if we're going by feature-length films, Death Proof would probably be the lowest on the Tarantino scale. Like, I think it's great, but if I had to rank them film by film, Death Proof would probably be the one on the end. The movie that I guess would be considered the worst technical Tarantino film, no surprise to anyone who saw that review, would be Four Rooms. If anyone doesn't know, Four Rooms is an anthology film featuring 4 stories by 4 directors, and Tarantino's segment in that film was fucking brilliant, but the first 2 stories are some of the worst shit I have ever seen in my whole life. So I guess if I had to rank any Tarantino film as the worst movie, Four Rooms would probably be it, just because, while Tarantino's part is good, it's only 1/4 of that movie, and I really don't know what to say at this point. I'm tired, and I really should know better than to drink when I do these reviews. And at the time I'm filming this, it's a stressful time on YouTube for everybody. Anyway, moving on from that awkward moment, I'm going to tell you the plot. Death Proof stars Kurt Russell in one of his first leading roles in a while at the time, and his first badass role in quite a while. Quentin Tarantino said he cast Kurt Russell because he kept thinking, when's he gonna be a badass again? And this role is not 100% badass, but it gave Kurt Russell to go back into some familiar good territory that he hadn't been to in a bit. And Kurt Russell stars as a character named Stuntman Mike. And in the film, when everyone asks what his name is, that's what he'll say. I'm Stuntman Mike. And never gives another name, no last name, just Stuntman Mike. He's a retired stuntman who just seems to be traveling through the south and western parts of the country. The film opens in Austin, Texas, and Stuntman Mike is at a bar. And Kurt Russell is the top-billed star of this movie, and he carries every scene he's in very well. But this is a very character-driven movie, and the Stuntman Mike character, he's not overused. And there's a good balance here of supporting characters and more supporting characters. Like, Stuntman Mike, I would say he's the main character, but even then he's only in a few parts of the movie. And the Stuntman Mike character is a kind of weird, kind of creepy man who appears to be pretty nostalgic for the 70s and 80s, which leads to some people thinking he's a joke and laughing at his getup. And, like, this is a part that is very awesome, and I will look with serious anger at anyone that dares say Kurt Russell looks silly with this. Kurt Russell, in Death Proof, brings back his rockin' mullet. It was 2007, but you got Kurt Russell. You want him to play a badass again, you have him have that fucking mullet. It is part of who he is, and even though he's a great actor, I think Kurt Russell is great in everything he does, even if the film's not the best. But something that I always feel, even in movies I love him in, is Kurt Russell without his mullet, I don't know what to say, just, it doesn't feel right. It feels like it's just a natural part of who he is, and he shouldn't leave it. And his character, Stuntman Mike, appears to be a nostalgic guy for the 70s and 80s. And he has a big scar going down his face. It's up here, continues down here. And he doesn't seem to be very sociable. And when talking about the movies and TV shows he worked on before he got into his accident, it's pretty clear that most of the people at the bars he's in have no fucking idea what he's talking about. You could say young people, or you could say millennials. It's hard to say. This movie was made at a time where I don't think the term millennial was as big as it is now. I mean, I know I'm technically, based on when I was born, a millennial age range person, but I have never been like most people of my generation, at least as far as movies are concerned. And I was, no, I didn't really have, I had a few friends in high school, but I didn't really do a decent job of reaching out to others. But I grew up on television and movies, and I was into watching all types of obscure movies, and even if my mom wouldn't let me, because I've talked a little bit before about how my mom, when I was growing up, was a bit overprotective in what I watched, I was interested in many types of stuff, many types of movies, and sometimes I found a way to sneak it past her. And sometimes I got caught, and she would get upset, but she was a responsible parent, and I don't think you can fault her for that. Anyway, Stuntman Mike, in the first half of the film, goes to a bar in Austin, Texas, where a bunch of women are at, getting ready before going on a fun weekend together. And these women are Arlene, played by Vanessa Ferlito, Shanna, played by Jordan Ladd, Lana Frank, I think, played by Monica Staggs, and, last, Jungle Julia, played by Sydney Tamia Poitier. And for anyone who think it's funny that her name's Sydney, middle name Poitier, she actually is the daughter of the actual Sydney Poitier. Hope I'm getting that name right. I suck at pronouncing. And, yeah, he had a daughter late in life, and as a young actress, she played, young dumb bitches in movies, apparently. And there's this nice picture of her and her father at the premiere of Grindhouse, so I just wonder, what did the true Sydney Poitier think of Grindhouse, and what goes on with his daughter in that movie? And these four women are gathered, and Jungle Julia, her name comes from her job as a DJ at a radio station. They're all gathered and they're getting drunk as hell, and Stuntman Mike is in the background, just watching them every now and then, and eating nachos. Not the type of nachos I'd like, and he could be seen as gross the way he eats it, but I don't know, maybe it's the way Tarantino directed it. But the way Kurt Russell eats the nachos almost makes you think, I want to get me some nachos. There are some men in the bar hitting on the girls and hoping to get them drunk enough to take them with them for their weekend. Yeah, these guys are fucking assholes. One's named Dov, played by, shouldn't be hard for him to play an asshole, Eli Roth. I say again, once again, I am not an Eli Roth hater, but I am not even close to being a fan of him in general. And this guy named Nate, played by, this is his real name, Omar Doom. I don't know if that's a name he picked up, or if that is his actual birth name, but that is funny. And a guy actually named Omar, played by Michael Bacall, who many people probably don't know. He's a screenwriter. He's best known for writing the 21 Jump Street movies with Jonah Hill and Channing Tatum. And there was a period where he was acting in quite a few of Quentin Tarantino's movies. Death Proof and Grindhouse, Inglourious Bastards, and Django Unchained. Hell, Omar Doom was in Inglourious Bastards. And Eli Roth! So yeah, the gang's all here. At this bar, Roth's character's like, we, not too subtly, keep ordering more shots. Get them drunk enough and they'll take us with us. As long as the guys order, fucking bitch will drink anything.
Drink shots? As long as the guys buying the booze, fucking bitch will drink anything.
And Quentin Tarantino has a small role in the first bar in this movie, playing the bartender or the owner of the place named Warren. And we get this fun scene of him going up to all the girls and them all doing shots together, and he says, referencing his own work,
Is that a tasty beverage or is that a tasty beverage?
What the fuck is it?
Chartreuse. The only liquor so good they named the color after it.
Stuntman Mike, who has been hanging in the bar this whole time, he approaches Arlene, who, earlier in the film, Jungle Julia says that she set this thing up with the radio, where she told her callers that if they spot a girl matching Arlene's description, to recite a poem to her, and she would give them a lap dance if they did. By the end of the night, no one has done it, and then all of a sudden, Stuntman Mike walks up after introducing himself around the bar, and he recites that poem, and we get this pretty well done scene. It's a little tense between Kurt Russell and Vanessa Roto. I can't remember at the moment. And he gets her to do it after doing some smooth talk and a little calling someone out as chicken. And Kurt Russell is very good in this movie, particularly in this scene, because he really comes off as threatening here.
You know how people say, you're okay in my book, or in my book that's no good. Well, I actually have a book. And everybody I ever meet goes in this book. And now I've met you, and you're going in the book.
And also, there's another girl in the bar who's not part of the main group because she hates Jungle Julia. And Jungle Julia, by the way, Jungle Julia, the character, is a real dumb, sneering cunt. And you just can't wait to see this particular character die. Jordan Ladd as Shanna, she's okay, I guess. She's mainly just there, not too much development, and I guess you could say it's a little Grindhouse-ish. Once again, this movie is not really 100% perfect in recreating the Grindhouse feel, but it does get a few things right. A little confusing, a little all over the place, but That was what Grindhouse was, but even then, it is definitely more well made than any Grindhouse film ever was. And anyway, excuse me, I just had a buzz moment. We also get, surprisingly, Rose McGowan as Pam, returning from Planet Terror, now playing a completely different character. According to Quentin Tarantino, he wanted to use Rose McGowan again because he really thinks she's a great actress. He wanted her in his movie as well, but Robert Rodriguez wondered, do we want to do that? Use her in both movies? And Tarantino said he considered it a tribute in a way to when Pam Grier was reused in a lot of B-movies, and to him, Rose McGowan was their Pam Grier. And Tarantino's role as the bartender here, after playing the rapist in Planet Terror, said he thought that made him the Sid Haig of the Grindhouse movie, playing a bad guy in one and then a good guy in the other. And in his small role here, Tarantino does a very good job. Once again, I think he gets too much shit for his acting. He's not that bad in the roles he does. I don't think he'll ever be a leading man, but he does well in the supporting or small roles that he does. And Rose McGowan, she is... I honestly did not recognize her the first time I watched Death Proof on the Grindhouse DVD. She is made up to look so different than the way she was in Planet Terror. She has blonde hair, very blonde hair. They really went extensive with the makeup to really make her look different, because, yeah, I really was surprised when I read this later and found out it's the same actress. Completely different than Cherry. And of all the women in the first half of Death Proof, the only ones who I would say are remotely likable or interesting enough that you care about them would be Vanessa Fertillo as Arlene and Rose McGowan as Pam. They do very good jobs, and I don't know what she's like in real life, but Sidney Tamia Poitier excels at playing a bitch you just want to see get it in the end. And Monica Staggs as Lana Frank, nothing too much to her. The way she looks, the way she's made up, I'm guessing the character is supposed to be a lesbian. She kind of has the stereotypical 80s dyke look, but they never go into it. You're just left to assume, I guess. And after the missing reel moment, where we are robbed of the lap dance scene, you can see it in the extended version, but not here in the true Grindhouse DVD. All the girls get ready to go for their weekend, minus the guys who are hoping to get them drunk enough. I guess their little shit plan didn't work. And Pam, who was approached by stuntman Mike earlier, is going to take a ride with him. And going back a little, I really love the first scene between stuntman Mike and Pam. She says to Warren the bartender, "Anyone here you can vouch for to give me a ride home?" And then Kurt slides his keys to her.
Is there anybody in this place you could vouch for to give me a ride home?
Fair lady, your chariot awaits.
Smooth. And also, just because I don't want to forget to mention it, stuntman Mike says to Pam when she asks how he got into the stunt business, he goes, "I got in thanks to my brother." And who's he? And he goes, "Stuntman Bob." Anyway, stuntman Mike takes Pam to his car, a 1970 Chevy Nova. And then she asks if it's safe, and he says, "It's more than safe. It's 100% death-proof." She asks what death-proofed is, and he says that in Hollywood, before the days of CGI, stuntmen would have to drive cars at 80 to 100 miles an hour and crash them and make the crashes look like no one could survive. So in order to do it, the stuntmen would have the car death-proofed, meaning they could crash it, smash it in ways that would normally kill somebody, all the while they would come out okay. And the inspiration for this came from when Quentin Tarantino went to buy a Volvo because he didn't want to die in some auto accident like the one in Pulp Fiction. And in regards to the safety of the car, his friend said, well, you could take any car and give it to a stunt team, and for $10,000 to $15,000, they can death-proof it for you. And they leave this bar, which, by the way, has the tank top that Kurt Russell wore in Big Trouble in Little China hanging on the wall. Awesome. And I said it before, John Carpenter is the best director Kurt Russell has ever worked with regarding the collaborative outcome. But Quentin Tarantino does a very good job with Kurt, making him the second best director I believe Kurt Russell can work with. And then this is where the movie really starts to feel almost like a horror movie. Before getting in the car, stuntman Mike looks directly at the camera and gives a pretty sinister smile. And then he gets in the car with Pam, and by the way, the car is technically a movie car. There's a shield of plexiglass separating stuntman Mike and whoever's in the passenger seat, saying that so the cameraman can film the actor driving the car. And Pam, sitting in the not-too-safe passenger seat, tells stuntman Mike she's going right, and he says, well, that's too bad, 'cause we're going left, and you could have said right, and it would have been a while before you started getting scared. But since you're going right, you're gonna start getting scared immediately. And then he takes the car down the road with Pam starting to freak out as she can't get out, and the car is going too fast, so if she did, she would die. And while stuntman Mike is safe in his side and has all these seatbelts, Pam has no seatbelt at all, not even a real chair. And we see, this is very interesting. Stuntman Mike is, in the first half anyway, a very clever serial killer. And we don't see him killing anyone before this, but you gotta assume he's done this before. And he swerves the car around a lot, smashing it everywhere. And Pam, being without a seatbelt, crashes everywhere and gets severely injured, and she looks very terrified. With a lot of fear in her eyes, she says, okay, I get it, this was a joke. Well, stuntman Mike drives the car, staring intently on the road, and Kurt Russell just looks so threatening when he's driving. And she doesn't really beg for her life, but tries to find a way out. He then goes, remember when I said this car was death-proof? It is 100% death-proof. But to really get the idea, you gotta be sitting in my seat. And then he just slams the brakes, causing Pam to shoot forward and smash right into the dash. And it apparently breaks her nose so hard that it goes into her brain, killing her. This was a very well done sequence. It really is scary and disturbing, and you feel genuinely sorry for Pam, and this is probably the most sympathy I'll ever have for Rose McGowan. And after slamming the brakes and killing Pam, Stuntman Mike runs his hands through his mullet. And then he drives down the road, catching up with Arlene, Jungle Julia, Shanna, and Lana. And then Stuntman Mike gets ahead of them, turns out the lights to his car, and goes at them full 200 a mile an hour speed. And he only turns on the lights right before smashing into them. All 4 women are killed instantly, and I'm indifferent about Lana and Shanna. And I was so happy to see Jungle Julia fucked up beyond repair. And Arlene, literally a second before she gets killed, even though she's drunk and high, she closes her eyes. The way she closes it, it's the kind of face that says, okay. Just accepts it in the moment. And after the crash, which destroys the car and even gets a Wilhelm scream, we cut to the next day, apparently, where we see Stuntman Mike alive and well in the hospital. And he's a little scratched, but nothing serious. And then, and this is pretty cool, we see Marley Shelton as her character from Planet Terror, Dr. Dakota Block, coming out of Stuntman Mike's room. And then we see Earl McGraw, the cop / maybe sheriff from Planet Terror, From Dusk Till Dawn, and Kill Bill Volume 1. And his deputy from Kill Bill Volume 1, his own son, who he refers to as Son Number 1, played by Michael Parks' own real-life son, James Parks. And for anyone who's wondering why these characters from Planet Terror are in Death Proof, Planet Terror and Death Proof apparently take place in the same universe, which is pretty hard to wrap your head around considering the laws of each movie's universe are very different. Like, the way they operate is very different than the other. But it's a cool connection, and for anyone wondering why these characters are here after the apocalyptic end to Planet Terror, Death Proof takes place before Planet Terror, but it's the second movie. It's confusing, but hey, that's the Grindhouse for you. And we see a bit more of what was hinted in Planet Terror, that Earl, who is Dr. Dakota Block's father, doesn't talk to her anymore because of the man she married. He says, "What's the word, Dr. Block?" in a very condescending way. And she talks about Stuntman Mike and how his injuries are nothing to really write home about. After she leaves in anger, Earl McGraw and his son, or as he would put it, Son Number 1, Edgar McGraw, walk and talk, and while there's absolutely zero evidence, henceforth they can't do fucking shit, Earl says to Edgar that he knows that Stuntman Mike intentionally killed all 4 women, but in showing that he's a pretty clever serial killer, he set it up all in a way, was very calculated, to the point where there is nothing that they could officially use to prove that he intentionally killed them. And it's cool, like Earl McGraw knows what it is, but he can't prove shit. And his idea of why Stuntman Mike does this, it turns him on. Like car crashes is Stuntman Mike's fetish. And funny enough, there was originally a scene in Death Proof after the first car crash where we see Stuntman Mike in the flipped car masturbating. I'm glad they didn't include it, because that would have been fucking stupid. And Tarantino decided to cut it out because with the following scene of Earl McGraw giving his monologue on Stuntman Mike being so good, the masturbation scene would have been pointless, and there's no way you're cutting out Michael Parks monologuing. But anyway, there's nothing they can do to prove that Stuntman Mike is a killer, so they gotta let him go. And then the second half of the movie starts. Anyway, the second half of Death Proof. The first half was great in being scary at times and really unnerving, and Kurt Russell really shined as a villain. Like I said in my Big Trouble in Little China review with Matt, who'd have thought he could do it? But he did, and the second half takes place quite a while after the events of the first half. Stuntman Mike now looks a bit more rugged, a bit more less well composed, not as cool looking as he did before. Like, he still looks tough, but he definitely looks shaggier, I guess is the term. And he's found himself a new group of women that he plans to kill with his death-proof car, which, since the first one got crashed, is now a 1969 Dodge Charger. And this new group of women that he's picked to be his next victims are a lot more awesome than the first group. Like, the first group made a good batch of victims, but here, these women, these are more my type of woman, more badass, and also, the women in the second half are people who work in the movie business, like the characters are movie people. And in fact, some of them are stunt women. People from Mike's circle of the world. So, you know this is not going to be exactly like the first half. And an interesting thing is, the second half of Death Proof almost feels like an entirely different movie. In fact, it almost feels like a remake of the first half. And it's hard to explain, like, the second half starts off like the first one with a group of women in a car talking about what they've been up to, relationships, sex, and a whole bunch of shit. And these conversations are pretty engaging and kind of let you know a few things about the characters. And the big difference here is that these women are a lot more likable and really seem a lot more awesome. Like, these are people you'd want to sit down, talk with, maybe have a drink with. And Mike, we see him at first taking pictures from a distance. And we don't see him a ton throughout the second half, but you can spot him in the background of a diner while this new group is talking, and the new group of girls are Abernathy, a hairstyle and makeup woman who, based on dialogue, is working on a movie starring Lindsay Lohan. She is played by Rosario Dawson. a very fun actress. I've really enjoyed her in everything I've seen her in. Sin City, Clerks 2, just a whole bunch of stuff. She's usually put in a great performance, and Kim, who I believe is a fellow stunt woman, played by Tracy Thoms. Thoms. She would be the badass, spunky black chick who carries most of the conversations, is kind of, I guess, the leader of the group, and is the only one who really says nigger in this film. And she also carries a gun on her for protection because it's a dangerous world we live in. And we also get Mary Elizabeth Winstead as Lee, an actress who is working on, as they call it, a cheerleader movie. And we see her throughout the whole film in a cheerleader outfit, and the fun part is all the women here, they're dressed up like characters at a movie, and makes sense, they're in the fucking movie business. And they just seem all the more awesome as the film goes on. This is just cool, having characters who work in the film business. Like, the first group of women, they were just a bunch of never really thought about life idiots who got drunk and high all the time, and didn't really seem that deep when thinking about things, and not really, they didn't seem like they were the movie buff type people. But these women, they are really into the movies, just love them, and know a lot of films that a lot of young women or girls probably usually don't know about, like Vanishing Point and the original Gone 60 Seconds. There's this very cool moment where Kim says, "Gone in 60 seconds," and I ain't talking about that Angelina Jolie bullshit. And before I forget her, the last girl in the group is Zoe Bell as Zoe Bell, playing a, I guess, exaggerated version of herself. Zoe is a stunt woman professionally. Like, I think Death Proof was her first legit acting role. Maybe not, but it was her first major acting role. And Zoe had previously worked as Uma Thurman's stunt double on Kill Bill. So you know that she's awesome and that she can do a lot of kick-ass shit. And she's New Zealand, and they make a few jokes about this, saying, "Never confuse a Kiwi for an Aussie. They hate it. And if you do, you're probably asking to get your ass kicked." I'm paraphrasing. I'm still recovering from all that alcohol I had. It may not seem like a lot, but I'm part Asian, and it really goes to the head after a few sips. Anyway, going back on track, these four all work in the movie industry, and they're getting together for a friend's weekend. And Zoe, wanting to take advantage of her time in America, goes looking for a 1970 Dodge Challenger, just like the one from the movie Vanishing Point. And it turns out there's somebody selling one, and all four go, and the owner, played by Jonathan Loungehran, Lounghran, plays the creepy owner of the car, considering selling it to them. The character is named Jasper, and he's your stereotypical redneck retard who, I guess, knows about cars, but not much about how to be sociable. When chatting with Rosario Dawson, and she brings up Kim, he goes, "She the colored girl?" And then Rosario, not sure what to say for a second, goes, "Yes, Kim would be the one of color." And Zoe, who I'm not sure even wants to buy the car, she just wants to take it for a drive, go way over the speed limit, just have a fun-ass time. Like, also, another important thing, the first group of girls in the first half were mostly pretty stupid. In this group, they got their stupid moments, but compared to the first group, they are 100 times smarter. Like, they don't make the brightest decisions, especially in the last half hour, but you can tell they know what they're doing and they can handle themselves. And what Zoe wants to do is she wants to drive the car, push it to its limit, and she wants to do this stunt thing that apparently she's done before, and she actually told people to stop her in case she ever tried it again. But here she's like, fuck it, I'm doing it again. And what she wants to do is like get on top of the hood of the car as it's being sped up to its limit. And Kim agrees to do it despite saying, there is no way I'm doing this shit. And Abernathy, not wanting to be left out by the cool kids, demands they take her. So they do after she is able to con Jasper into letting them take it. And this leads to kind of a funny moment, but a very questionable moment as well. She's able to con Jasper into letting them take the car without him with them, by saying that he can spend some quality time with their friend Lee, who has passed out, I guess, after a drink too many. And like I said that they're a lot smarter than the first group, but I did say they have their dumb moments. And she insinuates that Lee is a porn star and that she might be easy to have sex with. So Jasper blindly just goes up to her and they take the car, honk the horn to wake her up and say, have a nice time. And they drive off, and Lee, looking both confused and a little worried, stares at Jasper, who gives what he probably thinks is a charming laugh, when really it's really creepy, and she just sits there like, gulp. Like, she doesn't gulp, she says gulp. And we never see her after that, and after they leave, you're left to wonder what happens. Like, what I gathered is she's in a situation where it's gonna be awkward. Like, he thinks she's a slut, and she's not sure what he wants, but she can kind of guess based on his demeanor. And the way this scene is set up, and this is what makes it awkward. You're wondering, is he going to try to rape her? Like, is this being played for laughs? And a lot of people really don't know. I like to think, you shouldn't take it that seriously. I don't take it seriously myself, but I'm just sitting there thinking, what happened after we cut away? I think if they had stayed, it didn't leave on a note that was disturbing. It did leave on a genuinely funny note. But I'm wondering, how is this going to play out? What's she going to say? I'm really curious what would have happened if we had stuck around for that. And then the film follows Abernathy, Kim, and Zoe as they take the Dodge Challenger and just push it to its limit, going pretty much in circles because they're not on the highway and they're kind of in a secluded area of the country, like roads going in between the woods and nothing too major. And Zoe does her stunt on the hood, and Abernathy, who's kind of the worrywart at first, really gets into it, and you see her come alive as she watches her friends do this. And then we cut to Stuntman Mike, who is watching top of a hill, has a lot of stubble. His hair is not as well composed as it was the first time we saw him. And then he gets in his car and heads down to kill them. And a lot of people have brought this up, that Stuntman Mike is not as well calculated or as smart as he was in the first half, and I don't dwell on it too much. It doesn't bother me. I'm just here to have a good time and have a good, cheap good time, and while this film is too well made for its own good, I'd say Quentin Tarantino is the Ridley Scott to Robert Rodriguez's Tony Scott. It is just a blast in the second half, and as they're doing their Stuntman Mike appears and just starts smashing the hell out of the Dodge Challenger, and the girls are just at first afraid for their lives, trying to lose him, And this is an extremely amazing scene. Like, Quentin Tarantino does not believe in using CGI at all, and he does not believe in speeding the film up to achieve the effect of a chase. So, when we see these cars going presumably over 80 miles an hour, they're really pushing that. And from what I could tell, Zoe Bell really was on the hood of the Challenger, and I think they had like a hidden belt for her for the filming, but they made it really look like she's holding on for her life on the hood. And I don't think my words could do this chase scene justice. All I can say is I was on the edge of my seat, and it's just it's well shot, and Quentin Tarantino, by the way, was the cinematographer on this movie. It was the first time he's ever been the director of photography for one of his own films, and he did an amazing job. The camera work for these chase scenes, whether it be high above or a low angle shot, it was just so well composed and steady, and it captured every aspect of this chase beautifully. George Miller would be fucking proud. Maybe he is. He's still alive. Maybe he saw it. And Stuntman Mike, for the first half of this chase, has the upper hand on the girls, and he's crashing the car, and both cars come to a halt when they reach a dead end. Zoe flies off into some bushes, and Stuntman Mike gets out, thinking, like, a big part of Stuntman Mike is he has confidence when he feels like his victims don't stand a chance, and he goes, "Ladies, that was great. Adios." And then all of a sudden, Kim pulls out her gun that she talked about earlier and shoots Stuntman Mike right in the arm, the forearm, and he almost immediately gets in the car and just speeds the fuck out. We see Abernathy and Kim, and they take a minute to breathe in the car, and they have a little cry because very emotional. They just went through was probably a traumatic experience for any normal person, and Zoe comes out of the bushes showing that she's not too bad, and almost right away, after seeing that their friend is okay, they look in Stuntman Mike's direction and be like, "Let's kill this fucker," or something like that. Just they say, "We're gonna kill him." So Zoe picks up a rusty pipe lying around, and they head off. And then we cut to Stuntman Mike, and Kurt Russell shows just how far he can go in his acting. And like, 'cause Stuntman Mike is not 100% badass. Like, he puts on the tough act, and when he's in a situation where he has the upper hand, he is evil. But as soon as his perfect little fantasy is broken, he breaks and becomes a pathetic bitch.
Oh, why? Oh, no! Oh. Ah!
And Kurt Russell, he revealed that all the blubbering and whining he does for Stuntman Mike in the second half, that was pretty much his idea. Like, Quentin Tarantino's original script just called for him to be broken, I think, but Kurt Russell thought, let's have him cry and whine. And he was very good at playing a pathetic person breaking down. And when the girls catch up with him, they are now the ones trying to kill him, and he just flees like a big coward. And throughout this whole chase, he's just crying to himself, going, "Oh, why? And they catch up with him, and you can kind of see their inner savage come out, and they're just smiling with glee as they put him through all the hell he put them through. And And then there's this very interesting part where both cars swerve out of the woods and wind up on the highway. And it's kind of funny to see these classic cars going on a chase in between all these modern day cars. It's almost like a way of saying the chase scene in the woods was exploitation fantasy, and then going onto the highway, they re-enter reality. I don't know if anyone will agree with me, but that's the way I see it. And then at the end, they wind up back in the wood area, where Stuntman Mike thinks he's lost them after they go up a hillside road. But the road leads directly back to the one he's on, and the girls, not sure if they'll catch him again, are filled with glee when they do. And they just destroy his Dodge Charger, and as his car is now lying there crashed up, and he's hanging out, just bleeding and broken, and just wailing like, the three of them get out, walk over, and then it's payback time, bitch. And we get this awesome and also hilarious scene of the three women just beating the shit out of Kurt Russell. And we hit him so many times over and over. And then, after delivering the final punch that presumably killed him, the three girls jump in the air and we freeze, and we get, all of a sudden, very abruptly, the end over the film. And just so abrupt and corny. It may not feel 100% like a Grindhouse, but that was the perfect way to bring this 3-hour double feature to an end. But then, after we cut to written and directed by Quentin Tarantino, we cut back just so we can get one more blow, and Abernathy raises her leg with her high-heeled shoe, and she smashes Kurt Russell's head in. And it's just so cool seeing this awful person just get his comeuppance, and like I said in my Planet Terror part of the review, Death Proof continues this theme that Grindhouse had going, where you see a bunch of women either getting abused or killed, and the person abusing or killing ends up getting their comeuppance in the most satisfying and nastiest way. These women kick ass. Kurt Russell excels, playing both a badass and a pussy, and it was just so fun to see him in such a creepy and unnerving role. And like all of Tarantino's films, Death Proof has a solid soundtrack. My personal favorite being the end credits song Chick Habit, which has hang up the chick habit, hang up daddy-o, and then stuff like you're gonna need a whole lot of glue when they come after you and cut you up in two. May have gotten that wrong, but I'm very exhausted. All I really have to say now, before I give my final thoughts on Grindhouse as a whole, is next to Tarantino obviously being the solo writer and director, the movie was also produced by Robert Rodriguez, Elizabeth Avalon, and Erica Steinberg, who also, I think, was the executive producer on The Kill Bills and Inglourious Bastards. And the executive producers were Shannon McIntosh and Bob and Harvey Weinstein. And the film, edited very well for a movie that was, at times, supposed to look like it was badly edited. The editor in this film was Sally Menke, Tarantino's editor from Reservoir Dogs until Inglourious Bastards, until her unfortunate death. They had a very good working relationship, and sad when that kind of shit happens and you lose a good friend. I love Death Proof. I know I'm in the minority, but the chase scenes are awesome. Kurt Russell is amazing. I love Tarantino. I love all of his movies, and he's been a huge influence on me, and I feel a connection to his work in more ways than one. One of them being the fact that we share the same birthday. The very last things I'll say about Death Proof are the opening of this film almost shows the movie's title as being Quentin Tarantino's Thunderbolt, which is only this title card is only visible for a few frames, and then all of a sudden we cut to a very cheaply made title card saying Death Proof. Tarantino said that this was meant to pay tribute to some exploitation movies that would be re-released under a different title, and sometimes have the different new title put in rather lazily in a way that didn't match up to the rest of the opening credits, which I thought was cool. And some actors who were considered for Stuntman Mike before Kurt Russell was given the role were Mickey Rourke. I could see Mickey Rourke playing this type of character. Sylvester Stallone. I could see him, but Stallone's ego, I'm not sure it would allow him to get his ass kicked and killed by a group of women. Ving Rhames. Maybe. Not sure Ving Rhames could master the personality for a character like Stuntman Mike. And Australian actor John Jarratt. So there you have it. That is my 3-part review of the 2007 double feature movie Grindhouse. A tribute to low-budget, not-so-well-made exploitation films of the 1970s that were usually played at the drive-in. I'd say it's worth the watch. It's not for everybody. It's not for, I think, if you got a weak stomach and you prefer a lot of character development, this film probably won't be for you. But if you like kick-ass action, cool dialogue moments, and some pretty fun actors having the time of their lives, I guarantee you will love Grindhouse. That is, if you can find a DVD or Blu-ray of the original version. What rating would I give Grindhouse on a scale of 1 to 10? I would give Grindhouse a 9.8 out of 10 stars. I fucking love it, and watching this whole thing in one sitting is truly an experience. Well, this has been my second 3-part review, once again for a movie that was directed and written by Robert Rodriguez and Quentin Tarantino. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope it wasn't too much of a waste of your time. Hope I wasn't completely insufferable, and like always, I will see you next time.